How good was Death Note actually? Death Note is a 2003 manga and a 2006 anime, which also received the movie in 2017. Long story short, the movie is a pile of horse shit, so I'm only going to be talking about what people actually acknowledge Death Note for, which is the anime and the manga. It's easily one of the most popular anime ever, and for good reason. The premise is insanely intriguing, and its mystery elements are akin to some of the greatest American TV shows of all time, at least according to the public. If you meet some horrible woman who loves Criminal Minds, An American Horror Story, or Law and Order, chances are they probably know about or love Death Note in its entirety. For something that was made in 2006, Death Note has held up in terms of animation. In fact, I'd go as far to say that Death Note's animation and production is so good that it will likely hold up forever, which is a huge statement considering the fact that hundreds of thousands of anime have been written, produced, and created and will continue to be. But I mean, come on. Everybody knows the soundtrack to Death Note. Its soundtrack is one of the best in anime history, and they even complement its narrative factors to the highest degree. So yes, Death Note was actually a masterpiece in its soundtrack and how it looks visually, but what about its story? The story follows Light Yagami, the greatest student in the country of Japan, who ends up finding a notebook on the ground after a death god or a Shinigami drops it on the ground for anyone to find. At first, Light is timid and attempts to stay away, but naturally the greed corrupts him and he ends up cleansing, I say cleansing in quotation marks, but cleansing the world of criminals and horrible people, acting like some kind of god. I think it's worth talking about the main critique I see for Death Note everywhere, and that's the fact that Light, and for that matter everyone in Death Note, is stupid. Initially, I planned on giving this its own video, and maybe I will in the future, but this critique is stupid in of itself. That's the point of Death Note. It's an item that would fill you with the ecstasy of power, no homo, and would turn anyone, even the smartest person in the world, into a dumbass. Light loses in the end because Light was corrupted by the power in his ego, not because he's unintelligent. If anyone, and I literally mean anyone in human history, was given the Death Note, I'd bet the entire ranch they'd end up in the same position as Light, and quicker at that. Death Note is a study of human nature, how the sale of morality causes people to act out in absurd ways. What I personally think is ethically acceptable is not something someone else would think is ethically acceptable, and that's okay. That's the point of the human experience. To develop your own train of thought and your own ways of thinking, which is also why I think Death Note is good and some people believe it's bad. I think this pseudo meta style of storytelling isn't for everyone because not everybody understands that art is subjective and interpretive. Death Note sold 30 million copies, but if you want my personal opinion, it shouldn't have sold more than something I like more for different reasons, which would throw some losers into a frenzy, but this is the reality that Death Note is trying to tell in its story. Maybe to you, Light is stupid and irrational, but to me, he's human, and for that matter, he's young. We're all very erratic when we're young. Light is like 17 years old. How many intelligent, sound, and sane 17-year-olds do you know? The answer is 0, shut the fuck up if it's not. This is why I also don't have as much of an issue with Light getting clapped the way he does in the second half of season 2 of Death Note that I did before. A lot of people have an issue with Light kind of getting crushed, and I did initially, but he never really stood a chance. One, Light was so high off of power that even if you grabbed Moonrock from Snoop Dogg himself and mixed it with ketamine and Xanax, he still would have been higher than whatever super blunt you could have rolled out of that. And 2, Nier was literally raised and curated to beat Light. He was a fucking Nepo baby. How in the world was he supposed to win? Now, my issue with the second season has developed and is nuanced. I think while this is a logical way for him to be defeated, it feels lackluster in comparison, which was a price to be paid for introducing a character like this. One of the beauties of Death Note was the fact that Light and L's conflict was massive, and it always kept you on edge. It was a wild card, it was unpredictable. With Nier, even though it makes sense that Light would get crushed by him, nobody really likes a one-sided beatdown, especially in stories like this. Monster, another anime I'll be covering in the future, is so good because from the beginning stages to the end, neither Tenma nor Johan are crushed by each other, which keeps the story entertaining, and instead, Monster uses that tension and builds it higher and higher through meticulous structure and of course a breathtakingly timeless style of storytelling, and art direction. Death Note, on the other hand, loses steam because part of what made it special is thrown out for the ending, which I can't necessarily bash the author for, because writing the ending to a story is very difficult for these very reasons that I name, especially when you're trying to portray a certain theme or message like the greed and corruption of humanity. How does Light win when you're trying to portray such a thing? He doesn't. Now that I've got the two main gripes from fans out of the way that I see, I want to talk about an underrated aspect of Death Note that I don't see many people discuss in length, and that's Death Note's ability to draw up elaborate plans. What I'm referring to here is more so Light's ability to draw up elaborate plans, something that creates a residue in the viewer's mind that causes them to stick to the series for one episode to another. Death Note's plot twists quite literally make my stomach twist and turn, and Light's ability to draw out plays as if he was an NBA coach is insane, to the point where it's jaw-droppingly impressive. So, is Light gay? Probably. No straight person rocks this haircut and turns down having sex with a goth girl. In all seriousness, now that I've briefly covered some things I wanted to talk about with Death Note, how good was Death Note actually? Well, I believe an 8 or 9 out of 10 is the most reasonable rating. I don't think it's flawless by any means, especially in the latter half of its story, but for an anime that came out nearly 20 years ago, its influence has clearly been shown in multiple stories today, and for what it's saying, I think it's genius in its ability to tell a story. At times, it's almost heartbreaking how ruthless Light can be when it comes to his goals, which makes him all the more fascinating as a character to me. He is a reflection of every man in society, and his build to his inevitable downfall is realistic and something that I've seen in real life. Maybe not on the same scale, but you get what I mean. Death Note would get put in A tier for me on a good day and B on my worst. Let me know what you think of Death Note, how good it was actually, your problems and concerns, and what you like about Death Note. That's going to do it for this video. I plan on doing more how good actually videos on a lot of older and more popular and well-received anime, but that's not all I do. It's Mobby, the guy who does anime reviews, retrospectives, rants, and more, and I'm out, y'all. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hey, check out my other videos like the worst anime movie in existence or why Bungo Stray Dogs is so masterful in what it does. I'm signing off, y'all. Peace. Also, yes, Light is gay. He's gay. I don't care what you say. He is gay. I would fuck the shit out of Misa.